Welcome to Money on Tap. Money on Tap, your personal finance headquarters, where we bring out the professionals' experience and some fun in what we call three-dimensional investing, utilizing insurance, brokerage, and fee-based planning. That's what we do on this show. We look at all sides of the issues, and we bring a fully independent planning perspective to the table.
Well, folks, here we are. It's a wrap for us on 2020, and hopefully you've been able to spend some time with your family, your loved ones, and talk about things that are really important. I know for myself, it's been a extremely challenging year. This has been one of those places that we never could have really anticipated being. How do we get through a pandemic? How do we take care of the people that we care about? How do we find a new way to share love, to look at what's around us and appreciate the things that are really fundamentally important to us? So I'm going to share something personally with you, and it's actually going to be a bunch of 2020. What have we done? What have we talked about this last year at Money on Tap? What has come up again and again for our listeners that it's really important to have conversations about? And I'm going to try to do it in a way that's hopefully fun, not too confusing. It's going to bounce around a little bit. It's just the nature of what it is to try to do the best of show. But really the personal side that I was wanting to share was we're going to call it the nuts and bolts. And I don't know what kind of family traditions you have or things that have been special for you over the years at this time of year. But for me, one of the things that my mom did growing up and still does to this day, thank you, Jesus, is that she makes nuts and bolts. And I grew up with nuts and bolts. Later on, I discovered it's called Chex Mix. If you've ever just had kind of the roasted nuts, the Chex, pretzels. What are the things that are, there's like little sesame things in here. It's just this, delicious mixed up, salty, nutty goodness. And so for us here at Money on Tap, we wanted to do something like that for you. It's just kind of give you the mixed bag of what we love the most of 2020. We're going to call it the nuts and bolts. Hopefully it's something that you enjoy, and hopefully there's things that you can take away and make your own in your personal finance journey. I know Ben and I have a lot of fun putting this together. We really enjoy the connections that we have an opportunity to develop with you, our listeners. So thank you so much for supporting us just by listening and liking and being so gracious to us as we kind of put this information out there, the things that we think that are important for you to pay attention to, and we love to talk about. We care about you. We certainly hope 2021 is incredibly different and prosperous, and a place where some of the things that we've learned through 2020 we can take forward, and we can pass those pieces on to the people that we love and we care about. And for myself and Ben at Brayshaw Financial Group and Money on Tap, that's you. Hope you enjoy.
How many times we get distracted in our life? We tell people, hey, you got to take a break from this. This is why you hired us. We're going to handle this portion, but you need to make sure that you're spending the time where you need to spend it.
Yeah, nothing else. I mean, there's lots of things that matter, but this is one of those places that you are rarely going to turn around and say, wow, I did not get a return on that investment. Some of it takes time too, because some of the relationships that the people that we love may not be the easiest in our life, and we know that. But time is one of those factors that is irreplaceable when it comes to the health of relationships and the health of us as well. And we see a lot of statistics coming through that are across our desks that say people who spend time with the people they love live longer, and they live longer, and they live more rich lives.
Yeah, I actually, the number of statistics that we see across our desk is pretty funny. I saw one the other day that I thought was pretty impressive. It's that people who spend, I can't remember if it was like an hour a week or something like that, or do a review with their financial advisor once a quarter, spend, well, I guess people who don't do that spend 20% of their day thinking about that. 20% of their day at work thinking about their financial concerns. And it can be alleviated by one meeting a quarter with their financial advisor, something to think about. But number 3, which we had, is it's a little bit like number 1, which is working out, but it's learning how your body works. And that's really more about the phases of life. As you get older, reading, becoming educated about the type of health and fitness you should be doing. They say if you retain somewhere around 70% of your muscle mass after the age of 70 till the day you die, even if you never did another thing. Another statistic I heard somewhere. Those types of things is keeping that and learning about your body and how that works.
Yeah. Something cool I came across was a company called OsteoStrong. And this is it's kind of like a gym, but it's not. It's a body hack where you go in for 15 minutes 3 times a week or something like that. And I mean, you don't even break a sweat doing the activities, but it increases bone density. And I mean, it's really cool. Like I went into their facility and I took the kids in there, and they had this room that emits ions or something, has some machine that emits some electric charge. And so Julian, the 3-year-old, they gave him like a fluorescent tube, and he walked into the room and it just lit up.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, so he thinks he has a lightsaber, like, and he starts waving this thing around. They're like, whoa, that's a real glass, fluorescent bulb. But it was pretty cool. So there's stuff out there like that we just didn't even know about, but it's on get it on your radar. It can be really cool.
One of the things I think is neat is learning a new skill. I think for people going into retirement, learning skills pre-retirement is something, or getting an interest or a hobby that you can develop in retirement, that you're not just trying to figure things out in the future randomly, I think is a good one.
Yeah. Now I noticed you skipped this one, Ben, and I don't know if it was intentional or not, but it was journaling, because that can be one of the last things on my list to do. But I think I will tell you, the other day I sat down and I did a little journaling. Maybe it was because I knew that we were going to talk about it, that it got up there in front of me, and I was like, oh, that's really good. I can do that. But I like to do that in the morning. It can happen anytime. But I do notice when I put pen to paper, and a friend of mine used to talk about the magic that happens when I put pen to paper, and I start putting some of those ideas that are on the inside out. They can be there, but something really does transform in that process, and that's good.
I wasn't skipping it for any particular reason, but I just was going down the list. I have journaled, and I don't journal every day. I don't journal every month. I wouldn't even say I journal every year sometimes, but I did. Like when we went on that missions trip to Guatemala. That's one thing I've always done on trips like that, is journaled, because the experience on things like that can be so emotionally overwhelming. It's nice to write down what that looks like, and then try to kind of look back at that stuff. And I think it's an art, honestly. I think some people do it tremendously well, and they utilize it. Probably a skill I should put more attention to be honest with you.
I think I need to put that in a Word document or some other format, because my writing these days is I even look at it, I'm like, what is that? Oh my gosh. You're listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551. That's 855-226-8551, or info@yourmoneyontap.com. If you are reaching out to us at either one of those addresses, phone or email, we'd like to get to you our 2020 top money moves. Okay. This is what we're looking at as in our planning world of things that we think are really important for you to pay attention to. And we're having conversations with our clients. We welcome you aboard as a Money on Tap listener to Brayshaw Financial Group. That's us. And how do we do stuff here? What are we talking about? What are the things that are important? One of the things, well, 6 actually of the things that we're going to be bringing to the table right now has to do with you and setting goals. How important is it to set goals for your retirement?
Yeah, there's Seth. We have kind of like there's like 7 or 8, items to the process of retirement planning that the average planner that kind of lives by, the kind of the sword of the outline of retirement planning. But the first one is to set your goals. And, a lot of people say, well, yeah, I got goals, but what does that mean? And how do I set those goals? Or, I want to travel. Or I really find that it's a very generic perspective of, dream-like state. And there is a good portion of that that's setting goals that's important. And yeah, you want to kind of encompass those things. But there's 6 questions that you need to kind of go through in going through each one of those dreams.
Yeah, so if you really haven't gone through the exercise of this, I mean, that's first and foremost, there's so many people that we sit down with, and they even come into the office already with a financial plan.
Oh,
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
But they haven't really articulated, like, what does that even mean? Why? It's just the numbers and what the numbers say. And that they have a number out there, like I love what's the illustration? Who's the company out there? Is it? It's not Fidelity. Is it? What's your number?
Oh, that's the old ING Voya.
Yeah,
sitting on the bench, and the guy has the number clicking over his head. What's your number? Yeah,
right. And it really kind of shows them just doing life or whatever. But there's this number out there. Apparently, that this number is so important. Why?
And the thing is that is the worst type of communication. It literally sets people in the wrong direction because it has nothing to do with the number. It has to do with the income the person's going to get.
Right.
See, retirement for everyone is all about income. And that income is derived from a set of goals that you have to, create income that you need to meet the financial demand of those goals. And if you have $500,000 or you have $1 million, if you can get a 5% return or a 10% return and you only need $50,000 to meet your goals and you have to save to those numbers, are you going to race to $1 million or are you going to race to $500,000? Obviously life's going to be a little easier if you have less stress on you and get the $500,000, you still meet your goals. And so a lot of that conversation is not happening well in the marketplace. People sit down with us all the time and they know they need income. Everyone listening knows I need income, and I need probably as much income as I possibly can get because we just read a report from the Center of Research Retirement that said, the average person 60 years old at 2016 only had $100,000 saved for retirement.
Is that your number?
Yeah, exactly. Is that your number? So how much income?
It kind of dehumanizes it, is what it does, in a way.
Yeah, there's no personal reason for it. Like,
no.
What'd you do? And, Seth, you're right. People come in all the time into our office and say, hey, here's my financial plan. My planner says this works. And the first question I have in the back of my head, which I don't usually say, is, why are you here? If it works and your planner gave it to you, why are you here? That's usually
mine is works for what?
Yeah, exactly. There's usually they're like, well, and I think what happens is people say, well, I can put $100 away a month. Or I can do $200, whatever that number is, $1,000 a month, and I can do my retirement plan. I can do this. And the planner throws all that stuff in and says, well, this is what you'll have. And of course, that works to what that's going to provide. But did it ever encompass your goals? Did they ever sit down and really iron out, like, what do your goals cost?
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Money on Tap. Don't go anywhere.
Call us today at 855-226-8551 and get your free consultation with Ben Brayshaw or Seth Krussman or any one of our partners and find out what's going on in your plan, your estate plan, your financial plan, or what you're planning at all, if nothing. Get it fixed, get it right, get it done today. Give us a call at 855-226-8551.
More Money on Tap in just a moment.
Folks, we have a lot of fun doing this show, Money on Tap, and Ben and I have been financial planners for years and years, and our goal here with you is to bring you into the room, have the conversations that we have. We think these are critical conversations for you, but we understand this is a limited space, and what we'd love to do is to open the doors to you with us at Brayshaw Financial Group, so you could experience what it means to have three-dimensional planning in your life. Let's take a look at all sides of your situation, your scenario, and see how we can put together the best plan possible, taking into account your risk. How much can you have in the market? How much do we need to have set aside and doing different things for your life? That's what we do as planners, how we engage with you, and we welcome you to do that with us. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Now, if you have $250,000 that are investable assets today, our planning is free to you. We want you to have the playbook to have a successful experience in retirement. Give us a call, 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Ben and I welcome you to Brayshaw Financial for complete wealth management.
And now, back to the best of Money on Tap 2020.
2% CD is pretty strong in today's environment as well, depending on how many years you're willing to, lock it in for. I mean, we're at all-time lows.
Right. So that's an example of like a constant, consistent rate of return. And that's what that is, a 2% rate of return, that kind of a CD story. And outside of that, I mean, there are other ways to generate those types of consistent returns, but to raise the level or the distribution is what that is what that CD looks like on the return. It's kicking out 2% over the year. That distribution is what your income would be. So how do you create a portfolio that has a higher rate of return, but kind of has the same characteristics like that CD distribution?
That's really where we're going with this. And I think this is where, we're probably more unique than a lot of investment firms and the people you're talking to and how the market's going to go. The market is on a tear right now, and it's been on a tear. Matter of fact, a lot of people don't know that 2018, the stock market was actually negative. The stock market actually lost money in 2018. Most people don't realize the S&P was down from January to December 31st of 2018, and not by 1%. I mean, significant percentage points. And depending on what you were invested in, it could be anywhere from, down 5 or 6 to down 12. And, that's one of the things that until people are educated that, hey, we lost all the gains of 18 in December, pretty much, in part of November. And then we have rocketed back up, recaptured all those gains, and then continued to climb. And now everyone's chasing this extremely strong growth story. And when we talk about growth, listeners, when you're thinking about, hey, I'm buying a growth asset, you're not buying something that's sending you a paycheck. They're not sending you a dividend. They're telling you, we're going to take your money on deposit as an investor, and we're going to make our company worth more, which makes your stock worth more. And that's what our hope is to be. And therefore, your stock value is hopefully going to grow at a rate greater than the risk that you're taking. Okay? And so, what ends up happening is that you're just hoping and trusting that this money on deposit is going to be all set. Now, there's the other investor who is looking at it, who's looking, saying, I want income today. I want dividends today. I want to know that I'm actually getting a reward for the money I'm putting on deposit with you as an investor. And those are your value-based investments. That's when we use that term value. A lot of people don't understand, hey, growth, value. Well, some companies are focused on growth and have a little bit of value, which, Apple's a great example. I mean, they pay a dividend, but right now it's under 1%. can someone live off a 1% dividend any better than they can live off a 2% CD? Well, if the stock's growing at an astronomical rate, well, then you're going to sell some stock to offset your income needs. Now, that might involve additional taxes, capital gains, or long or short term. And how's that going to impact yourself? And then dividend yields. For some people, dividends are great. That's exactly where you want to be. And, in today's world, what's great about this 72T scenario, Seth, and you and I use this all the time, is to tell people, hey, with that dividend yield that you're buying this current stock at, we can base, what retirement can look like potentially with a flat-based value on the stock where the stock doesn't move. What does that look like? When are you going to double your money? When are you going to triple your money? How is that going to impact you today, tomorrow, and in the future? And what we have noticed, and what we've talked about year after year after year, is that the demand by the baby boomers for income is so high, but we have so many baby boomers still yet to retire that the growth story is still super strong. But we have noticed that these high dividend opportunities are still out there. The people have flocked away from, real estate programs, gas, oil programs, things that are literally just traded assets, traded stocks, traded on the exchange that produce high yields. Even banks and, even tobacco companies we've seen. People have flocked away from the yield base. Now, we're not recommending anything here, but if you're looking for real yield, it's out there right now. Because what happens is, when people are flocking to those growth, hoping that they're going to double or triple their money in Apple or Tesla or whatever that story is, they're literally selling maybe the dividend asset, the value asset. And as that value asset declines, because more and more people are selling, even though the company could be perfectly fine, perfectly financially stable, people just don't want it. They think they can make more money in the growth side. What happens is the value of the stock declines. The dividend distribution, if it's based per share, actually rises. So the lower the stock value goes, the higher the dividend yield. So, people have left these value-based investments pretty heavily, and we've seen kind of some unique opportunities. I was just reading a whole article on it just yesterday of all these dividend-based assets. That's all they're focused on, and some of them are some real estate programs are legally bound by law to actually push out a high percentage of that income, and that kind of holds them to the fire to make sure they're pushing out that income to you. So it's not like they're just going to turn it off, because in order for them to keep their tax beneficial structure, they've got to push out sometimes in the upwards of 90% of all income that comes through the door.
This is the best of Money on Tap 2020.
The late retirement planner, the procrastinator, or the I just got life handed to me, and what do I do now because I'm getting close to that window?
Well, I used to do a lot of seminars. I used to speak a lot in public, and one of the things I used to say, you just reminded me about it, Seth, is I used to tell people all the time, be like, all the different stages of life, but when you hit that kind of mid-50 range, your kids are usually just getting out of college, you're burned out financially from that, and now you're racing to make retirement work. And the last person you want to call is the financial planner, which is going to cost money in your mind, and it's going to be expensive, and you're just trying to put money away and so forth. And the truth is that may work for you, but it's probably not the best decision. But a lot of people walk through the door and say, I don't have anything, or I don't have very much, or I have this old Roth, and I have this old 401k. I got these 5 different pieces and so forth, and I'm not sure what to do. I just did a presentation to somebody yesterday. They were like, I don't know if we can accomplish our retirement goals. And one of them was, because of age disparity, her retiring earlier. And so we worked through the whole process and every piece, start to finish, and we were able to accomplish that, and they were, just absolutely thrilled. But it took a lot of work, and they didn't think it was even possible. So,
you talked about something right there, and I forget, because we're working in this all the time. And, we have areas of our life where we get nervous about, or we get a little uncertain, and we don't know what to do. And that's what a lot of the time is kind of in between people coming and sitting down with a financial planner and doing the work. In that is there can be some guilt, there can be some shame, there can be some, procrastination, all the typical stuff in life that just is us as humans is real. and recognizing it right out of the gate. Just say, hey, it's there. It's on the table. That's good.
It takes a lot of courage to come in. I had a wonderful lady come into the office concerned about finances. We walked through some issues. We walked through some concerns. We discussed future opportunities and what needs to happen, and, sent them away with some things to do and things to work on. And that's great. That's exactly where we should be, in a constructive working mentality and not running away from this stuff. Bring it to give us a call. Let's figure out where you guys are at. There's so many different things that life can bring you. And people have disasters in their life all the time. You're not alone in that. And I think sometimes hearing that is helpful.
Yeah. And if it's not sitting down with us, I want to say that if you're sitting down with a planner, you should be. There's so many different ways to skin the cat, so to speak. And it's finding what's going to work for you, because if you cannot make it your own, if you cannot get on board with this plan, it's going to fail. And that's the last thing any one of us wants to sit here and watch happen for our clients or anyone else. So if you really are getting a solution presented and it's only one type of a solution, there should be some options in this. And we're going to discuss those things, because there's other considerations that we need to have in the process of trying to figure this out. But you got to get on board. And that's the thing, that do not wait. Do not pass go, collect $200. That is not what happens here. We're getting on board. We're creating the plans, and you know what? We're going to buy in, and we're going to make it happen. And that's what you can do. And that's what we're going to talk about right now.
So if you're 58, you're 60, you're 55, you're racing to retirement, you say, hey, I've got really not much at all, if anything. And what's the first thing you need to do? I think the first thing that you need to do is quantify how long you're going to work. If you don't allow people to learn, to grow, and so forth, you're just showing a lack of trust. You're showing a lack of transparency between yourself and the people that are going to inherit your assets, whether it's a business, whether it's, money, whether it's any of those things. And honestly, it doesn't allow the other family to the rest of the family to grow and develop and so forth. Like I can't say always, but invariably all the time I possibly can encourage people to bring their kids in and be part of the conversations. I just got a call literally last night. I was checking voicemail, trying to leave, and I saw a call from one of my clients' children. He's the executor. I've met with him. We've had multiple conversations. When we do investments for his parents, we include him. He's very active in his own investing, handles a lot of his own money and so forth. And he reached out to me and he said, hey, listen, I've got a financial transaction that's going on in my life. I'm looking at buying real estate. I'm looking at this. I'm looking, all these different pieces. Is like, would you give me a little bit of time? I really appreciate the work and effort you've done with your parents, with my parents. And he's growing and developing. He's challenging himself. He's challenging me. And honestly, I've seen his parents really strongly educate him in the financial matters to the point where they consider him an equal in financial decision making. And that's a healthy method to how to develop your children in becoming that next generation, to the point where now he's talking with me. He's looking for further guidance, further wisdom, further development in that. And that's a whole nother stage, right? I mean, so you have education to where they're an equal, and then you have them seeking further education as they develop themselves.
Yeah. So what are some of the things that we see in just this part is that, and this is very much a human behavior type of a situation where, along that risk path that we were just talking about as well, where, you've developed this wealth, okay, and you've made so many mistakes along that path, but understanding that the mistakes along the path helped develop you into where you are, and trying to allow that same process to unfold with people that are coming behind you, and to allow them to have individuality in that, kind of promoting in a sense a culture of hey, go out, figure out what you need to figure out, learn from your mistakes, bring that information back to the table so we have an opportunity to be educated through you, empowers that person to learn better from their mistakes and really connect some neural pathways in their process to be a more educated, stronger leader for themselves and also in the family as well. But the tendency here is to shoot people. We see this all the time, to shoot them down and to cut them down and not allow them. Like, mistakes are bad and you'll never be able to take over this business because you make these mistakes here. And that is a limited mindset. And it handicaps families.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I mean, we're sounding like we're talking about big business. We're talking about big estates. But the truth is it has to do with every size estate. Whether you have 100,000 or 100 million, your kids are going to eventually have to help manage whatever you have. And I have one family that I'm working with, and the son is a client and asked me to look at his parents' stuff. And I've gone in, and they need some real management and real help. But he's in the midst of fighting them about what to do with the assets. And the dad, who is struggling with memory issues and and just reasoning and understanding things, is just so complicated. And he doesn't want to invoke his power of attorney. And I'm just sitting back waiting for them to take the slow steps that he feels they need to do. But I really feel like the parents haven't really embraced their trust to him. And I asked the father, I said, listen, your son works for, it turned out that he works for a financial company. And he said, hey, listen, I think this is something we should be looking at. And I agreed with him. And so we went and made the presentation to his father. I was like, listen, do you trust your son? That was the question I asked him. I go, do you trust your son? He goes, yes, I do. I go, do you think he has your best interests at heart? Yes, I do. Then what part of this are you really struggling with? And because it really is a piece of trust, right? I mean, everybody here listening is a piece of trust, but for him it wasn't. And so sometimes we fool ourselves in that. And I think you're dead on, Seth, is allowing people to fail. The problem is that when it comes to estate funds that are like still being used for a surviving person, right? If it's mom or dad's money, you screw up and they're concerned we're going to be bankrupt, right? That's a big fear. So those are the kinds of things that I can understand the woes and the hesitations. But in providing that upfront and really getting that mentorship, the right education, developing them, and building that trust and getting that to the point, you won't have those issues moving forward.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. You're listening to Money on Tap. Don't go anywhere. Ben, how often do we have somebody come into the office and they don't have a financial plan? And how critical is it for us to put the pieces together and make sure that their future, their retirement, is a successful experience? We talk about it all the time here at Money on Tap. If that's you, give us a call at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. Whether you have 100,000, 500,000, 5 million, look, folks, we have the right planner for you. Whether it's Ben or myself, Seth Krussman, we're here for you to get the plan together and make sure that next step is right.
And now back to the best of Money on Tap 2020.
What are we going to do? We're going to try to get into some of the questions that come across our desk regularly when we're working with new people or people are trying to get oriented in this world of financial planning. But what are the questions that you should be asking yourself first and foremost, and then also your financial planner or financial advisor when starting to go down that path, make a decision to work with somebody on your finances?
Yeah, and I was also going to say too, Seth, if anyone wants to follow us on LinkedIn, we have a lot of great posts there that you can find Seth Krussman or Ben Brayshaw, and we'd be happy to let you follow us and look at some of the articles that post there with us. But
or if you want to stay agnostic in that, you can just go to Brayshaw Financial at LinkedIn too.
Yeah, absolutely. Any of those things.
Because I will take it personally if you follow Ben and not me.
That's too bad. Really. That's too bad. That's too bad. Seth, we get a lot of questions, and I think, some of the transparency inside this show is really going to help a lot of people, because not knowing what the answer should be sometimes you can have a great question, but if you don't know what the answer should be, someone could just be blowing smoke and you would have no idea. And I think that's some of the stuff that, we really think that should be covered on a couple different levels, because you really want to know what you're walking into. And honestly, most people have a bias on a lot of different levels. And we try to really trim the bias out of how we see things. And we have what we call three-dimensional investing, where we do fee-based, planning. We do brokerage. We do all the commission-based. You name it, we can function inside those different domains. So we can really provide value for why we have all those opportunities inside our practice to be able to help people depending on what their needs are, because everyone has a different need and there's a reason for everything out there. I always tell people, generally, there's no bad investment. There's either appropriate or inappropriate, suitable or unsuitable. It's not relevant to whether it's good or bad for everybody, because that's just not something that you can ascertain yourself or even us. But the first question that we advise people to ask is, are you a fiduciary? That's really...
What do you mean? That's a word there, Ben. What is that?
That's a big word. That's a big word. I mean, ultimately, whether you're a fiduciary or not, a fiduciary is basically someone who's responsible for some of the decision-making involved in managing your assets. Like, they're actually going to hold the liability for the advice they give you and the implementation of it functioning and working. I mean, that's really a very, very important thing. And the definition, one of the definitions I found was, a fiduciary is a person or legal entity, such as a bank, brokerage firm, and has the power and responsibility of acting for another, usually called the beneficiary or principal, in situations requiring total trust, good faith, and honesty.
Yeah. Do these people have a transparency? Are they willing to put your interest first?
Yeah, in the Cornell Law Dictionary, it says the fiduciary duty is the highest standard of care.
Yeah.
There is nothing higher than that.
Yeah.
So the question about fiduciary is, there's two of them. One is, are you a fiduciary? And the answer should be yes. Okay, if you're really dealing with a financial planner, the answer should be yes. The second question that you're going to want to know inside the fiduciary thing with an answer is, will you be acting as a fiduciary in this transaction? See, what a lot of people don't realize is that just because you are a licensed fiduciary, the transaction that you might be involved with may not be a fiduciary-based transaction. That's not necessarily a bad thing. In commission-based assets and so forth, most likely you won't be acting as a fiduciary in an investment transaction with somebody. It's highly unlikely. It could happen. There are ways where you can be acting in a fiduciary and get commission, but it's rare and not common. And it's not bad that they say, hey, I am a fiduciary, but in this transaction, you're going to save money, actually, when I act in a commission-based fashion versus a fiduciary fashion, because it's going to cost you less money, and this is a good thing. So that does happen, and that's why commission-based transactions still are relevant and appropriate at times.
This is the best of Money on Tap 2020.
We're going to talk about long-term care. And I know this is what's on everybody's plate today, because why not?
Well, the thing is long-term care is so exciting, and everyone's... I think we're going to take a different approach to the long-term care piece today, which I'm actually excited about, because we're going to talk a little bit about statistics and odds and what the likelihood of having a long-term care event looks like for you.
Now you're getting me pumped. Statistics.
Yeah, I know.
Odds.
Yeah. Sorry.
You get the history. I'll take the stats. I love it.
And, I think for people to know the probability around their need for long-term care insurance or not, everybody is expecting us to be saying, hey, you got to buy long-term care insurance, but that is just not what we do. We have provided long-term care coverage in one way or another, but Seth, it's an interesting fact about my personal practice is that out of all traditional long-term care insurance, like just buying the pure old style long-term care, I think I sold one policy that someone straight up requested and asked for. one traditional, like the
So they just showed up knocking at your door saying, give me that long-term care policy now.
Basically, they were becoming clients, and they said, you know what, we really want to buy long-term care. I sent it out to a third-party wholesale company and so forth. So I've never been a big fan personally, so I share that bias because I just don't like the use it or lose it side. I don't like the kind of the old story of where I pay into this long-term care policy, and then if I don't, become a drooling vegetable in a nursing home, then, great, and I gave a bunch of money to an insurance company. That has really died out. That's the thing that's really interesting is that type of long-term care insurance is very hard to find. I mean, the MetLifes, the Mass Mutuals, the Genworths, they've all kind of vacated that portion of the business.
If they haven't, then one of the things that's happened is they've continuously raised the rate.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, the thing about long-term care insurance is like they can apply every 5 years to the state insurance commission and say, hey, this is not covering our bills and our expenses. We underpriced this.
Yeah.
That's scary.
And if you have it, you've probably experienced that because I can't think of anybody out there that hasn't, in the long-term care world, that hasn't gone through those rate increases.
I remember one wholesaler coming through the door telling me about long-term. Our company has never raised rates in its entire history, and this isn't. That's the standard we carry, and blah blah blah. It's like
and they're not in business anymore.
They don't even offer it anymore, and yes, their rates are going up now. So
yeah.
It's just kind of funny because we get all these news articles and all this information from all these companies we've ever talked to, and they constantly inundate us with information, and it's great knowledge both on the good side and the bad side to really just filter out kind of history, because some of our experiences in this business, when you wrap together, the 100+ years of experience with the advisors that we have on our team, it's like there's just a wealth of knowledge that just drives wisdom of just pure in the business, seeing pros, seeing cons, seeing failures, seeing successes, seeing what kind of works. That you can't learn in a book. You can't learn when you get a license or you just come out of the industry. And then to work with some people who have varying degrees of experiences just brings kind of like that cream of the foam at the top of that drink, like that experience. So
I want that experience. That sounds really tasty. So we're not necessarily going to try to, pro or con or we're not going to go through this conversation and try to land and say, you have to do this. What we're in the business of doing here is we are in the business of having the conversations that are really critical to you and that reflection in your family and your finances, and looking at the possibilities here of ways that you can navigate what is it's a critical conversation. And we believe very strongly that you need to have this conversation. Now, whether it's just with you and your spouse, or if there's more people that need to engage in this, it is a topic that needs to happen. And there needs to be some understanding around what is the landscape here and what are the possible ways to navigate through this. So that's our goal. And that's kind of generalizing, I think, a lot of the financial planning experience too, because there's a lot of topics and areas like this. This just happens to be a really big one on our plate today.
Yeah, Seth, that's a great point, because I don't think long-term care is an always yes scenario. Never have, and never will. I say never because it doesn't apply to everybody. No, nothing is a perfect solution for any one person. What I think is interesting, though, is that approximately 56% of Americans will need at least one day of long-term care.
Okay.
So
that's a high probability number. Now, if you tell me that, I say I want it and I need it, because that's it's kind of a scary topic. For one, I don't like the idea of a long-term care scenario. It's an expensive topic, so I want to make sure I've probably got some kind of a protection in there when we think about that. But I mean, we're greater than a coin flip that's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean it's one day. Okay, so more than half of the population is going to need one day of care, and that's reasonable. I mean, this was noted in Advisor Perspective, and when you start looking through all the statistical odds that they have, I mean, they're all general. You and I have both heard these things. They're all over the industry. These statistics are not anything new. What I really think is interesting is that, as you get older and you're married, okay, so if you're a married couple over 65, that percentage continues to rise. So the older you get and remain married, that percentage of needing care one day does rise. But what's interesting too is women versus men have a significantly different percentage. So 64%, a little over 64%, will have some nursing home stay, where men will only have 50.6%.
Yeah. Women at 64%, men at 50.6%. I think that's one of the most amazing statistics out of anything that we take a look at, because so many of the numbers typically are stacked against men in general.
Men, just the statistics of them dying, from heart attacks and so forth, is still higher than women, even though the women have risen in that area over the years. It's one of those things that and there's nothing we're saying here that's shocking anyone here. I mean, I don't think that women are saying yeah, my husband, he might I'm kind of prepared for him to die in his sleep, and I'm going to probably need some care. And I think the thing is that women potentially might need care more likely because women tend to outlive men.
Right. So there's nobody there to care for them. They need care. And so that maybe that's a part of the percentage being higher, because they've outlived their spouse and they're in the situation needing care. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah.
Hey, is there some good news out there? Are we going to flip into something new?
There is some good news. There is some good news. Well, inside of all of this bad stuff, right? The Fed has lowered rates. All sorts of stuff is going on, and that has dramatically changed, the financial opportunities for a lot of people. One of them is in the mortgage refi business. Applications rose 79% last week and are 479% higher than a year ago.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
Run out right now. Call your mortgage broker.
So when you got your super low rate 4, 5, 6, whatever it was years ago, that 8 years ago when rates dropped dramatically and so forth, I got this killer rate. I was just talking to my mortgage broker, and I said to him, hey, listen, I said, you need to take a look at this and see if you can beat it. And he said, oh yeah, we can beat that. And I had a great rate. I'm like, that's ridiculous.
This is the best of Money on Tap 2020.
So this is going to be a great opportunity for me to have some fun with what I love about history, and explain what are we even talking about. First of all, when people say annuity, it can be very, very simple, but it also can get to be a complex part of what is essentially creating income. What does even an annuity mean? First of all, it comes from the Latin word annuus, which means annual, regular series of payments, whether annual or bi-monthly.
The word annuity, it just means guarantee to pay. There's a guarantee inside that, whether it's annual, as you said, Seth, or biannual, semi-annual, whatever the scenario is, but there's a guarantee built inside something that you're purchasing. So, in the securities world, when you have a guarantee, you're going to slap the word annuity to it, whether it's an income, a death benefit, whatever the guarantee. There's annuities with long-term care guarantees out there. There's all sorts of different stuff going on. They get complicated and they get very confusing very quickly.
Right. But these are not anything new to the investment world, right? I mean, as a matter of fact, before we even had, current day markets, I mean, these annuities go back into like Roman times, right?
Yeah, they really do. I mean, I don't know the exact history date on that, but I would say that, yeah, they do. They go back really far.
Right, where basically one of the original contracts around these were, if you come and you fight for the Roman legion and then, you die, well, then there would be this annuity payment, kind of like a life insurance settlement. But that is one of the ways that this is even possible, is because what supports these contracts are go figure, insurance companies. And that's what it is. It's an insurance contract.
Well, Seth, I don't know that I want to put my money in with an insurance contract. Like, what's the point of that? I mean, why? I don't understand. Why would I want to? I'm investing my money. Why would I use an insurance company?
Well, I love your question there. It's a really good question. And I don't, frankly, if you were to ask me the same thing, I'm like, I don't like insurance. It's not what I want to talk about today. But the fact is it's just really the chassis that allows the contract to exist. It's the wrapper, so to speak.
It's the protection, right? I mean, it's the kind of thing. So there's three types of annuities out there that we generally classify, and there's basically the fixed annuity that looks and smells like a CD. Usually has a little bit better interest rate than a CD most of the time, and it's actually tax deferred even with its after tax money. So if you have a CD sitting out there and you're saying to yourself, I really don't like the rate, and I'm paying taxes every year, there might be a way to defer that for you right through a fixed annuity. Then there's the kind of the variable annuity, which is, basically full market exposure. Like you're going to see swings like we're seeing in the market today. Like if the market's down 20%, you're going to experience a 20% swing. But the word annuity means that there's some sort of guarantee piece to it, whether again it's income or death or something attached to it. Some promise to pay is built inside that contract. And then there's that kind of hybrid thing I call, and it's an equity indexed annuity or fixed index annuity. And usually what that is it's some market link to it. It has a little bit of downside protection against market loss, but the gain is capped. So basically there's a limit to how much you can really make in it. And that usually... And those programs come with and without various income and death benefit features. I mean, you can buy these things from plain vanilla that I just want an annuity that rides the market, that's tax deferred on my non-qualified or my after-tax money, so I don't have to pay taxes on that every year, and I'm going to put that away for retirement. Because once you put it into an annuity, what happens, Seth? You got to keep it in there until 59 and a half, right?
Right.
And those things are out there. We deal with those all the time because people just want that. And those are cheaper annuities. But as you add more insurance to your annuity, whether you want income or death features or both or whatever, the fees go up and up and up, and that's what everyone talks about.
So the more I have in a guarantee, I gotta pay. I have to pay for a guarantee one way or another. So that's one of the ways that the expenses get added into or added to these contracts. And the equity indexed annuities, Ben, that you're describing there. First and foremost, what is even an index? What is an index? So that's that's the S&P 500. That's the Russell 1000. These are all indexes out there, but these strategies kind of get put together to allow for some flexibility and growth options is kind of what that looks like. And the cap piece really is a limiting. Like we don't have an unlimited earning potential within this vehicle because there's the fact that there's other things like guarantees coming alongside. Now, if you were to go back into the variable annuity, then you might have something more that's kind of in the unlimited side, upside potential with just that annuity wrapper that keeps those gains from being taxed on the way up. And, and the volatility could be there as well. So that's one of the parts that people need to understand is that just because it says annuity and it's a variable annuity doesn't mean that it has necessarily some kind of a floor or a guarantee to keep the contract from being less tomorrow than it is today.
Thanks for joining us today for the best of Money on Tap 2020.
You've been listening to Money on Tap. You can reach us at 855-226-8551 or info@yourmoneyontap.com. You can also find us at Facebook. We're at /3D Investing. We're also on Twitter at BFG_LLC. And as always, you can also find us at yourmoneyontap.com. Thanks for listening. Thanks for liking our podcast. We appreciate you, and we can't wait to make it a great day and a great life with you here at Money on Tap.
The views expressed are not necessarily the opinion of this radio station and should not be construed directly or indirectly as an offer to buy or sell any securities mentioned herein. Investing is subject to risks, including loss of principal invested. No strategy, product, material, or tool mentioned can assure a profit nor protect against loss. Please note that individual situations can vary. Therefore, the information, products, materials, or tools mentioned should be relied upon when coordinated with individual professional advice. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. This show may be subsidized in whole or in part by a product sponsor or issuer. Securities and advisory services offered through SagePoint Financial Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC, and a registered investment advisor. All other services offered through Brayshaw Financial Group LLC are independent of SagePoint Financial. SagePoint Financial and Brayshaw Financial Group do not provide tax or legal advice. Main office is located at 116 South River Road, Bedford, New Hampshire, 03110, and can be reached at toll-free 855-226-8551.